So let's do it. Let's pick Tom's brain today. Starting with, we've got 6 running backs today. Starting with JT, Jonathan Taylor. Going right now, we're using average ADP, composite ADP over on Fantasy Pros. Going at RB6, overall 15, which is good enough right now for an early second round. JT still just 24 years old, coming off an ankle sprain early last season, underwent a cleanup surgery, about 8-9 months ago in December. Tom, this man broke fantasy football 2 years ago with an unforgettable 2021 season. Can he get back to his dominant self, or are we concerned going forward, Tom?
I am highly concerned right now. Highly concerned. So he's still dealing with the ankle injury from last season. If we remember last season, week 4 or 5, sometime in October, high ankle sprain, missed 2 games, came back, re-injured it, missed another game, injured it again in December. This is the same injury 3 times throughout the season. We know these ankle sprains are notorious for doing that, especially high ankle sprains. We talked a lot about high ankle sprains on the panel and how they don't always heal properly. So the issue is that the 2 bones in the shin, the tibia and the fibula, with a high ankle sprain, they get separated from each other. And there's a big, thick tissue called the interosseous membrane or the syndesmosis, same thing, that holds them together. And when that gets disrupted, it doesn't always heal back properly. So those 2 bones do not always come back together how they're supposed to be. So that's why these injuries can linger for a long, long time. I've worked with an NFL player before who was like, I had a high ankle sprain like 3 years ago and it's still bothering me. And now he has this procedure in the offseason, early offseason, that these days, these past few years, we're hearing all about the tightrope surgery for high ankle sprains. Tightrope surgery is super effective. He didn't have that. He just had a debridement, a clean out. So that tells me that there was loose tissues in there, whether it be cartilage, loose fraying of the ligaments, whatever. They didn't repair anything. They didn't fix anything. They just cleaned it out to help with pain and maybe some range of motion. But clearly, he's still dealing with these issues if he's not practicing. And we know some of that's maybe contractual, but the most recent reports are that he is really still dealing with his injury. I am very concerned here. If things were going smoothly, this ankle sprain from last season, I wouldn't be so concerned with. But since they're still not going well, all these months later, he's been rehabbing it all season. I'm very concerned. I'm not drafting him anywhere unless he really, really falls.
I share your concern level, and I didn't even know that it might not even be healing properly. For Jonathan Taylor, it's like going to the beach or being down the shore when there's an impending hurricane, Tom. You go on the beach. Well, I don't know if you're crazy enough to go on the beach. There's no green flags there where it's like, go ahead, swim. The yellow flags where it might be a little tide going on, dangerous. No, there's red flags all over that damn beach. And there's red flags this year all over Jonathan Taylor in so many different ways. Tom, you just evaluated his injury, right? He's not practicing. I don't even think he's really practiced at all yet. Still being held out. We're inching closer to the season. Contractually, going over to that concern, still on last year of his rookie contract, he wants more, as many of these running backs do. Those are 2 concerns, Tom. We haven't even mentioned the situation, his effectiveness, the offense, the Colts. Those are red flags outside of some of these other red flags. Now, listen, JT, last year, surprisingly, Tom still averaged 91 yards a game. He's a special type of running back. I mean, even now with Richardson, right? Linebackers do, if you visualize it, they have to respect him being able to run. Richardson, that is. They can't exactly sprint right to JT, but these are some good things here, right? The depth chart behind them is bad. Matt Ryan last year, guys, was not very good at all. Richardson has to be an improvement, but other red flags, right? They get around the goal line. Richardson could easily poach. Doesn't even matter if it's 2, 3, 4 goal line touchdowns or those goal line carries, right? Dump offs. What do we know? This is the most obvious thing in fantasy, right? Dump offs are going to be limited when there's a mobile quarterback. Guy sees he's scrambling out, right? And he could either take off for 10 yards or he could dump it off. He's going to take off, especially a guy like Richardson, right? And last year, JT only had, I know he was limited, missed 6 games. JT only had 28 catches on 40 targets, right? not a prolific
Not much.
pass catcher. No, he's really not. Another thing, too, Colts projected to only win 6 games this year. So in the first round or second round, you're going to take a running back on a team. Well, first off, he's got all of his concerns on a team that's going to be trailing. And what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to throw the ball. And JT doesn't do that so well. It's crazy to even say this. I think for me in a 12-team league, Tom, half-point PPR, I think he would have to fall to like the third round for me to take him. There's too many concerns. I recognize the dude is an absolute elite talent, but I'm taking there's probably a list of 10 receivers I'm taking over him. CMC, Eckler, Bijan, Barkley, Chubb, Henry, Pollard, Ramondre, even Kelsey. Like third round, I'm still questioning it. It's amazing how things have changed over the last 2 years, but you're concerned for his injuries, Tom. I don't think made me feel any better. You agree? Third round, maybe? It's hard to point a
I would
finger.
even take him there. I mean, he's not off my board. Like everything's at cost, but I don't think I would take him before 4.
Yeah. Everything always at cost, but I see him going at that 1-2 turn, and for me, that just opens the board up for other guys to fall to me. All right. A little reluctant to pick in a lot of my mock drafts, and Tom, maybe you can convince me one of the other ways. It's J.K. Dobbins, sliding down the board a little bit, RB20, overall 52, so that's going to cost you a 5th rounder. J.K. Dobbins is 24 years old, hamstring tear that he's recovering from, and even further back, he had that ACL tear. Tom, from an injury standpoint, what are your thoughts and concerns here on J.K. Dobbins?
Just to clarify, his most recent injury was a combination ACL, meniscus, hamstring, and LCLs, all of them at the same time in training camp last year,
Right,
or 2 years ago. Then we saw him return and was not really looking so great. Played a few games, then went out again for another procedure. What they did, the reason that he needed that other procedure is because he had never regained his full range of motion in his knee, and you could see that he was not bending his knee as far as he needs to, and that's going to impact so many different things. So the procedure, they went and cleaned out some scar tissue. They probably did what's called a manipulation under anesthesia, where they put them under, and then the surgeon literally cranks the knee, forces it to bend, and you hear all the scar tissue break up.
Hold on. Have you've never been in a room when that's happened, right? That sounds awful.
I've heard from surgeons and PAs what it's like.
Yeah,
so
no,
they either
thanks.
did that, or they just went in and arthroscopically cleaned out some of the scar tissue, or sometimes they'll do both. I recently had a patient who he said that they had both done. They did the manipulation, then they went in and cleaned out some more stuff. It sounds a lot worse than it is. Like it really sounds terrible, but it's not. I mean, you're under anesthesia. You come out and you're sore, you're a little swollen, but ultimately it's what he needed to regain that motion. And it's not like you're restarting the whole rehab process of the ACL. It's not like that at all. There's no precautions other than just like get that pain and swelling down and get that strength and balance up. But that goes much faster, like 4 to 6 weeks. And that's exactly what he missed. He missed like 4 or 6 weeks or something in there. And then he looked pretty good in the last part of the season. So I'm fairly bullish on him this year. If we look at the running back data on ACLs, and this goes back to 2017, so I'm not including Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles, who are the two that just took off in year one. But since 2017, running backs in the first year after ACL averaged 35% less points per game than their pre-injury averages. So, and then in year two, they average 15 points per game less. So they really pick it up in year two. And in that second year, we've seen 33% of these running backs actually exceed their pre-injury average. And Saquon didn't exceed that, but only by 5% lower. So that's still really, really, really effective. I really, really like Dobbins to bounce back this year. I don't think he's going to be elite. I think the situation is gonna definitely dictate things, but I do think he's going to have a nice season. And going in the 5th round is pretty reasonable.